once a day again, so welcome. And today's webinar, SEOntario.org, an introduction to Ontario's newest social enterprise community. So it's brought to you by the Canadian Community Economic Development Network on behalf of the SEO Ontario Collaborative. And you've seen their logos on the introductory screen. My name is Paul Chamberlain. I'm with CCEDNet-Ontario, and I'll be co-presenting with representatives from our partner organizations. So Heather Laird with Ontario Nonprofit Network and Laurie Wainwright with Pillar Nonprofit Network in London. So the three of us will be presenting throughout the hour, or I should say more like the 45 minutes, because we certainly want to leave time within the hour for discussion with you. So as we begin, if we can get back to the, actually maybe Matthew, you can just link right into, let me share, if you can share, let me share my page, and I'll begin my sharing at this point. I'll just get in and share my screen. Second. So, oops, let's get back to the heading page. And if everything is going correctly, everybody should be able to see the home page of the SEO Ontario screen at this point. And that's where we'll begin. So first of all, I do want to acknowledge the fact that this webinar is part of a series of webinars funded through the Ontario Trillium Foundation to support social enterprise infrastructure development in Ontario. There's been one past webinar called Inspiring Innovation, which was on the report of the 2012 Social Enterprise Survey for Ontario. And there is a link to the report and the webinar in the resources section on this site. There will be future topics in the fall of the year, and those will include profiling different models of social enterprise development, as well as we're developing a French version of the site, and we'll be having a Francophone webinar to launch esontario.org in September as well. So the goal of today's webinar is to have us all learn as much as we can about how we can use SEO Ontario to build and strengthen the community of social enterprise in Ontario. The site is a community-driven showcase of social enterprise and the social economy in Ontario, and we'll be highlighting what's been developed so far to inform and engage the sector and help us connect with each other. But then we certainly want to hear your ideas about how we can extend this further in the future. So we're going to start off with Laurie. And Laurie is going to share with us a little bit about the social enterprise stories and tell us a little bit about the story, some of the stories area, and explain why you think that's important. So over to you, Laurie.
Thank you so much, Paul. Just waiting for my screen to share. There we go. And by now you should see again the homepage of the SEO Ontario website. So we'll start by looking at a little bit about stories area and maybe why we think this is a super important piece, as we know that telling the stories is really instrumental in sharing the successes of social enterprise in general. So as you can see at the top nav bar, we have what is social enterprise, and right next to that is SE stories. So if you click there, what you see is basically a drop-down menu on the left-hand side where you can actually go in and choose by criteria the social enterprise type you want to look at. So if I look in the service industry of the business type, for example, I'm clicking on service, and I want to go to the north, and I'll click search here, and I come up with the True North Community Cooperative, as you can see. And when you open their story, you can immediately see when they started, what type of category we've given them, which is social in this case. And you can see what they're all about in a really short summary on the right-hand side, when they started, what date they were added to the site. And then there's a nice history, and a lot of pictures are always welcomed, as you know, but it really gives you some in-depth on what they're all about. And it's very easy to also go into on the left-hand side. Again, if I look at something like lessons learned, it goes right to what we believe are their lessons learned right here. So the nav on this particular page is really quite extensive and very good. So that's really about the stories, although, again, feel free to chat for any questions you might have.
And Laurie, I know we've talked about the fact that we want to increase the number of stories on the site. Can you talk about how you see that happening?
Sure. It's actually a new feature that we've just added. So if we go back to the SE Stories homepage, at the bottom left, we see Submit Your Social Enterprise Story. So here's where you go in and submit your story. There is a bit of some instructions there, including how to guidelines for the submission, which I strongly recommend you take a look at. It takes you directly to this form to complete, and the PDF is pretty descriptive, so that'd be a great way to kind of get to know what you need to put in there. And once it's submitted, we preview it. We may edit it a little bit, but once we've confirmed it all good, we will actually help you promote it by tweeting your social enterprise. Some organizations have developed, multiple enterprises, so it would be, it depends on how you want to have it shown. So, for example, COIN, which is on our homepage in Peterborough, they have, a few different social enterprises, and they've broken it out like this. So we have one here, and then we have another one below it. So they've broken it out this way, as you can see, and it gives you some really good history behind the entire organization. So it depends on how you want to submit it, but we really strongly recommend that you do submit and share your stories like this. And this is really a great meeting place for people of Ontario to see and learn about the social enterprises that we have here. Were there any questions on the chat, folks?
It's looking as if everybody's following everything and no questions at the moment. So maybe, I know you were going to tell us a little bit about the other main feature on the site, which is the resources area. So feel free to tell us a little bit about that. That would be great.
Great. Thanks, Paul. So again, I'm going back to our homepage, and on the resource section, we have multiple types of resources. On the left-hand side is a summary, again, of them, and they're broken out on the right-hand side of it. So, for example, if I'm looking at, I want to inquire about social finance, it just quickly gets us to this government recommendations on the topic. There's research, there's it's broken up by regional, by marketplace, and again, this is all very neatly placed out on the left-hand side. And then you would also see that there's, this is very basic text, but we're really happy to show you and give you a sneak preview of how this page is reformatting. And I'm going to take you to a tab now that's in the works. And these are basically just a different way of getting at the same information, kind of more in a pictorial perspective. And it gives you a little bit of background on each of the different tabs, as you can see. For example, the one we just looked at on the task force, it gives you a little summary of what it is, and you just click on it and you get there when they put it up. The other thing that's really cool about the resource section is just like the SE Stories, if there's a resource that you think is missing, by all means, there's this button here that Submit Resources, and you just click on there, and then you include any of the resources that you want to include with a small, short description, and then the resource link itself. So again, this our resource page is getting a makeover, and it will be pushed to production soon. But for now, on the live page, we have this this piece here where you could see it in a very kind of a linear way.
That's great, Laurie. And perhaps just even as we're proceeding with the rest of the webinar, if any of you have favorite resources that you know are not there and would like just to list them in the chat box, then that would be great, because and even just by mentioning it in the chat box, we'll check it out and we'll add it to our list of resources. And one thing to mention as well, that the way that our approach to resources on the site, as you can tell, it's not that the site is about being able to develop lots of resources ourselves. The idea of the site is really to be able to link out to what we see and what people in the social enterprise community see as being some of the prime resources that are really helpful to you. So it's a way of kind of bringing those together, hopefully, so there's sort of one spot that you can then link out to those.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. And you know, as much as I think everyone has different varying degrees, even for anything, whether you're submitting a story, a resource, and I'm going to flip over to the events piece. You know, we all have varying degrees of knowledge on social enterprise, so this is so important to build. You know, I think that the team's done a really good job of presenting the information as we know it, but if this is meant to be a community-based website, then by all means, as part of the community, let's all share it and include what we can. And then on that note, so...
Just 1 second there. There was one specific question from Meredith.
Oh, okay.
And she's asking whether in the future, when resources are available, it'll show where they're available. So really, for the most part, Meredith, the resources that are available through the resource section, it's really about hard resources that would be PDFs, videos, or documents that are available to everyone. So they wouldn't necessarily be based on a particular, for a particular region. Excuse me. But if they apply to a specific region, like so, for example, if they're around northern issues or if they're about rural issues, then they will be tagged in that way so that you can find out. You can go into that particular community section and find out just those that are based on, say, rural or northern or a particular region of the province.
Thanks, Paul. So let's flip to our event section then. So here again, this is as good as we can submit our events. That's going to really improve the integrity and the quality of this website. So if there are events that you have that are forthcoming, by all means, just click on the Submit Your Events for the community calendar. It's very intuitive, and it gives you some idea of, is it a conference, if there's an image there, time, date, location, and some organization organization information as well. And that's really important. Again, this is provincial in nature, so anything that's out there on the province should really be included in here. And as you can see right now, we list them by the most upcoming instances. So we have the Bi-Social Canada Summit that's in June, going on today and tomorrow by the looks of it. And so this is, again, something that is very, very much part of the community build of the entire website.
So thanks, Laurie, and absolutely we encourage anyone who has events to share those through the website. And also we'll just mention, I guess, that anytime events are there, we do tweet about them. So a reminder to follow us on Twitter, and you know, it will be a way of getting your event, being able to have it promoted more.
Okay, so on that note, are there any chat questions out there, Paul?
I think we're okay at this point. I think we've had everything. And if we're missing any now, maybe we'll move ahead. And if we're missing anything here, then we'll catch it in the discussion at the end.
Good stuff. So then back, I believe, to you, Paul.
Right. So if you stop sharing your screen, then I'll begin sharing mine, and then we can. Hopefully you can now see my screen. So we're back to the home page again. And so I'm just going to run through just a few of the other features, quickly through a few of the other features on the site, highlight some of them. I do want to point out, we'll start looking at the provincial support. If you look on the screen at the right-hand side, just to the right of where we showcase the featured social enterprises, you'll see that it says provincial support. And provincial support takes us to two different links. One is the Ontario Social Economy Roundtable, and also is a collaborative of provincial networks and organizations involved in social enterprise development in the province that are interested in coming together to really take a province-wide approach. And so also focuses on policy development, on building the sector, and building the movement. And so if you don't know anything about OSA, then I definitely encourage you to take a moment and go into that page and find out a little bit about the roundtable. Right beside that is the Government of Ontario Support for Social Enterprise. So that link takes us into a page that provides direct information from MEDT's Office for Social Enterprise. So if we were to click on there, we'd immediately, well, in fact, we'll just take a second to click there, and you can see that immediately we have information about the Office for Social Enterprise, some basic information about impact, which is the social enterprise strategy that the Office for Social Enterprise developed, and you can download the report from here. As well as links to other government initiatives that they're supporting through the Office for Social Enterprise. If those of you who were on the site recently, while there was the RFP for the CEDEF fund, the Social Enterprise Demonstration Fund, that was prominently located on the site, both through this page, and in fact we had that on the front page as well. So this area is available always in both English and French. It's sourced directly from the Office for Social Enterprise. And again, just a reminder that the Government of Ontario, along with the Ontario Trillium Foundation, are key supporters of the website and the development work that's happening here. Right below the provincial support, you'll see the featured marketplace. And the marketplace that we really like to feature most of the time is the Kitigan Marketplace. This is a space where people can directly purchase online the products of Aboriginal artisans in Ontario. And if you don't know anything about this site, I encourage you to go in there and have a look at it. It's a beautifully developed site, and you get to have a really good look and to learn everything about the products, and then you can literally buy them online. And so we love this marketplace. The other marketplace that we do feature here from time to time as well is the ENP Social Enterprise Canada National Marketplace. And so that's also, you can link to that from the resources section. But there are a lot of Ontario social enterprises and Ontario social enterprise products and services are very well represented on that national marketplace too. So if people are interested in looking for social enterprise products and services, that's the place to go. SEOntario.org is also really a great place to come for really up-to-the-minute news about the social economy and social enterprise. If you look there at the bottom of the page, in the center you see social economy news. So social economy news is, this is RSS feeds that we link to. We look to see what are some of the best RSS feeds that we are aware of about social enterprise, both in Canada and internationally, and then we linked up to those so that we can all get a sense, not just what's happening in Ontario, but what's happening in the rest of Canada and what's happening, in fact, in the rest of the world around social enterprise, because this really is a growing sector and a lot happening on it. To the left of that, you see the news, and this is news news items that we generate ourselves. So you get, the most recent news is right there, but then when we get to view all news, you get to more information about that, and you see that the current news that we're sharing is the news about this very webinar that we're on at the moment. But then you can go down and see the previous news, and you can see news items include things like RFPs for applications that relate to social enterprise. Going a little bit further down, the information about the hybrid legislation that obviously is key to social enterprise in Ontario. So, and you can scroll down further and see other news items that we've been promoting. And you'll also see at the very top of this page, again, yet another way that we want to use SEOntario.org to engage the sector. So if you have news items that you'd like to share and that you think should be shared with the rest of Ontario, you can just click there, go into the form that's provided, and provide the information to us. And then again, we look at it, we go through it, and it can become a part of the SE Ontario news. So yeah, yet one more way that you can connect with what's happening through SE Ontario and be part of what's happening through SE Ontario. A couple of other ways of connecting with recent news. We do, of course, have a Twitter account, and as I mentioned, we'd like you to follow us at SE Ontario Web. And so we tweet a lot about anything that's on the site, about any social enterprise related news, and so definitely encourage you to, and we'll forward a lot of other people's retweet, a lot of other people's tweets as well that are related to SE Ontario, to social enterprise in Ontario. And just before we leave the news section, I do want to just mention the YouTube channel you can see on the left there. I think you may have noticed in the stories section that there are videos connected with a number of the stories. Those are all on our YouTube channel, but there are also a number of other videos about social enterprise in Ontario, and we gather those together, and they're on the YouTube side as well. The one thing that you may have noticed we just kind of glossed over and said nothing about was the social enterprises are on the map. And so this is another area that is here but in development as well. So if we click on there at the moment, what we see is a map that does have, at this point, over 1,000 nonprofit social enterprises. These are the ones that we connected with in the survey that was mentioned earlier. And if you zoom in, so you get to see sort of how many social enterprises are listed in a particular area, but then as you zoom in, you can get right into them and just click on them and find out what they are. At the moment, all we have is just the name. Very shortly, there will be the website as well, even in this kind of view. But and also, as you go down, you can also, if rather than looking at it on the map, you'd rather just see a list of the social enterprises. All of those there's a list view right below the map, and you can see them all through just an alphabetical list. But what we've been told by people in the sector is that really what's far more important is to be able to do more of a search and to be able to see, find out more about social enterprises and to be able to search for specific enterprises or specific kinds of enterprises. So that's what we're in the process of developing at the moment. And so here is another sneak preview of what you can expect to see about a month from now. So one difference you'll notice here is that the dots, there are 3 different colors of dots, and those represent the kind of different levels of information that we have about this social enterprise on the site. So one color will be the social enterprises where we have a full story or case study. Another will be the ones that you were just looking at that really all we have is just a name and the URL. And then the third group will be the sector, the ones that we have more complete information that are part of our really searchable database. And as we move down the page here, you can see that we'll be able to search. Yes, you can search by name or by city, but again, more important, in the same way that with the stories, you can just put in different kind of business type, the region, the kind of demographic groups, say whether it's youth or women and so on, even the sales, kind of sales revenue, so you can see how established it is. You can search for that. The list will come down. You'll be able to see what's available. And then as you click on any one of those, the kind of key data about that particular social enterprise will come up on the screen, and you'll be able to see that nutshell information. So we already have about over 150 ready to sort of put up and go with this, but obviously we want to have a lot more. So if you are on our 1,000+ social enterprise list, within the next week or so, you will be receiving an email from us saying, do you want to be more than just a dot on the map? And it'll be just put you into a brief SurveyMonkey survey to provide us the information that can let us share your information and make it easier for people to connect with you through this online database. And I do want to mention as well, we've mentioned a lot of that nonprofit social enterprises, but certainly this is including, and we're promoting this with the for-profit social enterprises, and then also the individual social entrepreneurs as well. So there'll be the full range of social enterprises that are all represented through this. And if you don't receive that email in the next week, then you can connect with us through the website, or just wait until it's online in the middle of July, and there'll certainly be a way that you can connect then.
And Paul, it's Heather here, just to check, for people who weren't a part of the original survey of those 1,000 or so social enterprises, can they also get themselves listed on the map?
So yeah, so as I was saying, certainly if you just contact us through the website, through the providing, if there's a feedback form, you can just send your information that way, or as I say, once in a month when the first lot of these go up, there will be, just in the same way that people can share their information at the moment in share news and so on, there will be a form for people to submit. But and certainly my email information is on the site and on the CCEDNet site. So if you email any of the contact information, then you can just share that information, and we'll make sure that you're up on the full map. And I think that finishes. I don't know if there are any other questions. Okay, so yeah, so we will also make sure that we email everybody who's been on this call with an email address so that you'll absolutely know how to get on the map. And I'm now going to stop sharing and hand things over to Heather, who is going to share one more really exciting feature, or we're excited about it anyway, that's new to SE Ontario. Heather, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen here. And this is, of course, the home page that we're on. And if you're in the top menu bar here where my cursor is, if you click on the little arrow next to resources, you'll get a drop-down menu that takes you to the resource archive that we've already seen, and also the question of the month. So this is a final and additional feature that we're very happy to add. And really, the idea is to help you and use the site to really provide a forum for you to get some of your questions answered about social enterprise. It's not a lawyer, so there are limits on how much detail and what exactly kind of background you can get. But we hope that this will be a resource to help us kind of get the conversation going and help build an FAQ page that will be an ongoing resource as we continue to get questions answered. And we were very pleased to work with MEDT and the Office for Social Enterprise on this, because they're also really interested in understanding sort of what people, sort of on the ground engaged in social enterprise need and what they're up to. And so this is sort of a resource for us and hopefully for all of you, and certainly it's a way for the Office for Social Enterprise and other colleagues in government to kind of get the pulse as well in terms of what people know and where they're at. So that's the question of the month. So what you can do is tweet. It's a Twitter mechanism. You can also submit questions right now to get it started. We're officially launching it today, and then it will be a little bit more public beyond this webinar as of July 1st. So you're sort of in the early days of it. So for today, you can submit questions that you might have by chat during the webinar. You can also submit them by Twitter, or you'll be able to submit them on the website through the form. So if you want to participate, there's a little piece on the right-hand side here, and you can submit your responses and suggestions in this form here. So this is also a way for you actually to respond to questions if you'd like to do that as well. And again, Twitter and other mechanisms work too. So that's the question of the month. I just wanted to check my notes and make sure there was nothing else to share with you. Do you have any questions about this feature at this time, or comments? Does it seem like something you would use, or what you might use it for? And I'll ask my colleagues on the webinar to let me know if there are questions while I start.
So, and maybe you can stop sharing your page, and we'll because we're going to be moving into the discussion period.
Okay,
there are a couple of people who are typing questions.
Great.
We'll give a second for that.
Wonderful.
And great to see that people are. Joanne is mentioning that she sees this as a great resource, and a great resource. The map is a great resource, and wants to get themselves on the map. So certainly, a couple of people have already just typed in their URLs in the chat. So that's we will be monitoring that. So if you want to just do that right now, then that's a way to make sure that that we get you on the map as well.
So Paul, just to jump in and make sure there's nothing else I need to do to get us back to the regular screen share?
No, Matthew, I think we had the list of kind of questions for our discussion time. So I think, Matthew, do you have that to put up?
Perfect. Well, why don't we, as Matthew puts that up, we can jump in. So as Paul mentioned, we have a bit of time at the end of the call here to make sure that we're getting your questions answered, and that as the site continues to develop, we have your feedback on how it might work or where it could go. And I know Lori and Paul will also jump in on this as you type questions in the chat, so we'll sort of jump back and forth between us here. But really the goal of this webinar was to make sure that you're aware of the features on the site, and also make sure that, you know, as we move forward with it, we're developing the features that you find really helpful, and that we can be responsive to sort of what you're saying you think you might use the most, and what seems the most exciting. So just waiting for the upload here, and we'll get started. There's a couple of questions.
We've got a couple of questions coming in, Heather and Paul. Okay to read the first one out, Paul?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead, Laurie? That's great.
Okay. So are the number of social enterprises Q&A conversations related only to the questions of the month, or may we also ask our own social enterprise related questions as well?
So I'll defer to Paul, but my understanding is that you can use that to ask any question you like. It doesn't mean they'll all become a question of the month, but there may still be people on the thread that have an individual answer for you. Paul, is that?
Yeah. So we'll be, you know, over time, we're certainly hoping to address as many of the questions as possible. But even if you end up submitting a question. So if you will have noticed from the form, you know, on the form you can either be submitting a question or submitting your answer to the current question. So that's, first of all, you have sort of the choice there, and you know, there will only be one question each month that we're really focusing on and encouraging people to provide answers to. One of the things we will be doing is, perhaps if we're finding there are some similar questions, we might actually be engaging people a little bit by tweeting and saying, hey, we have these two questions, which do you want to be the next question of the month, just so we can kind of generate some interest. That we'll be doing that. But again, this will be something that we'll be just generally monitoring as well. So even if there are questions that don't become question of the month, if it's something that we see and think, okay, this is something that we should be linking you to so-and-so who can provide that answer, or we can provide some of that answer, we'll certainly be doing that. So it is, you know, will only be each month one question that's really being focused on in detail, but we will be trying to link as many people as possible to answer questions.
Thanks, Paul. So the discussion questions are up here, but before we get started, there are a couple of other questions that I want to make sure we cover, and I'll ask for your engagement on this. So just to get a sense of who you are a little bit more, I know we had an introduction at the start, but if you're running a social enterprise right now, could you type a little X into the chat box? Just to get a sense of how many folks we're chatting with here who have sort of direct work on social enterprise. That would be great.
Lots of X's coming up there, which is wonderful.
That's great. And so keep, if you want to answer that question further, do type in an X. That's the only one we'll use an X for, so we'll know that's always what it means. And if you're someone who's sort of interested in supporting social enterprises, whether you work in a policy shop or perhaps in the government or in another organization that supports social enterprises, if you could type in a little Y, that would be great. And I know some of you might have more than one of these things, so that's okay if you type twice. Great. Thanks so much to those of you that are answering the question. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing that, as you'd surmised, there are some people who are involved both in running social enterprises and supporting other social enterprises in various ways.
And I'll just ask one more. If you're here as someone who's interested in getting more involved in social enterprise, or sort of maybe potentially starting one, or figuring out how to support one, or just getting a sense of what's going on so that you might be able to bring that back to your community, if you could type in a Z, I guess, would be our final letter. So if you're newer to the field or from a different area and trying to learn more. Okay, wonderful. So keep typing those in, but thanks so much. That really gives us a sense. Of where you're at. So thank you for that. So we'll jump into the sort of proper questions here. What features will you use the most, do you think, based on all of the different ones you heard about on the webinar today? So the resources, the stories, the map, and the ability to search for different social enterprises, the news, the Twitter, and the question of the month.
Yeah, so Susie is mentioning the stories and the map, stories and resources. Yeah. It's great that people, the stories are definitely, people are seeing that as really important, and that is certainly, I guess, when we first began looking at the idea of the site, the stories were the first thing that came up, I think, as in themselves an important resource to be able to be sharing with folks.
And a couple of people, Tay and Meg, have mentioned the potential for a job board or a job find feature or an internship sort of position finder. That's something we can definitely keep in mind as the site grows.
Sure. Just in terms of a job board, not to take you away from seontario.org, but I should let you know that CCEDNet does have a very active job board. So if you are looking, so that this is a national job board, but if you are looking for jobs in community economic development, social enterprise, social economy, there's a pretty active job board on the CCEDNet website, so you should be aware of that. But I think the idea of having one specific to Ontario and specific to social enterprise is a really great idea too. In fact, Matt, you had just shared the link to the CCEDNet job board as well.
Great. Thanks to those who answered the question. And again, if you have more to type on any of those questions, just let us know which question you're responding to and feel free to type away further. Do you have other ideas to engage people through seontario.org? So how might, are there the job board is, or sort of job connection idea is one that was mentioned already. When you heard what was on the site already, are there other things where you think, oh, that's what I'd come to the site for? That we haven't talked about yet. We've got some responses in the wings here. That's great.
There were several people who had mentioned, checked off that they're sort of at the beginning stage of this and kind of exploring social enterprise and looking at that. And you will find the link in the resources section. But I really have to say, for anybody that's sort of thinking about starting a social enterprise, we really do see that the ENP, Canada's website, and particularly their guide to social enterprise, is a great place for anyone to start. It has some great sort of checklists of things to think about as an organization. This is more definitely focused on organizations rather than individuals who are thinking of starting a social enterprise. But it has great checklists of things that you as an organization need to look at and think about. So just throw that out there, that anybody who's it's definitely one of the primary resources in Canada for people who are looking at starting a social enterprise and want to get the information they need.
Great. And we've got some suggestions here about sort of more active community mechanisms, which is wonderful. So I won't dive into all of those. You can read them in the chat there, but thanks to those who have added them. And I guess the second part of that question is, what kinds of people are you thinking about engaging? Or, we sort of talked about people who are newer to the field, people who are running social enterprises, and people who are looking to support them. Are there other people you think of that you would want to make sure you share this site with that might be looking for something different? You think about when you sort of are in your physical community, do you think of other things that you might need if you're sharing this sort of with your local organizations or your local sort of government partners and that kind of thing? or even knowing who else you might share it with, even if you're not sure what other features might be appropriate for them, would be great to hear.
I love the idea that's come up there around sort of a specific kind of, well, Joanne calls it an online coffee club, or Meg talks about also having a specific time when there can be a bit of a Twitter campaign, if you will, around particular industry-related topics for social enterprise. So we can just kind of know that at any particular, at a particular time or for a particular hour on a day, people will be tweeting about this particular aspect of social enterprise and so on, and using the site for that. That's a cool idea. I love that.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I wonder if we could integrate, special guests on something like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There are a lot of people in this province who know a lot about social enterprise and social enterprise development, so it would be cool to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like sort of people are mentioning, getting more specific, either information about specific kinds of fields, food, or community food centers, or startups, useful partners, and really diving in more deeply into making some of those connections. And excitement about that guest blog idea. That's great. And I would encourage, especially, it's wonderful those of you who are contributing. Those of you who have been quieter on the chat, please do feel free to type stuff in, or if you want to send something directly to the presenters, if you're not as comfortable chatting out loud, please feel free to send any of those along, or by email afterwards as we roll through these questions here. What about online training? Great, that's a great idea, Tay, thanks. Okay, so jumping through to the next question here, how can we improve what we have? There are pieces that we've, whether it's the resources or some of you have mentioned updates already to, potential expansions for Twitter and some of those other features. But is there anything if you saw the stories or even just the front page or the provincial resources, any part of it where you thought, that could be better if we did this or tried that?
And while people are typing their ideas there, I will just jump back to Meg's idea, or to Tay's idea of online training, and certainly the webinars that are coming up in the fall, where we'll be featuring a particular kind of social enterprise or a particular model of social enterprise, is one form of training in many ways. But also very recently through the rural social enterprise constellation. So yes, it has a rural focus, although it applies in many ways to all social enterprise. There've been a number of webinars about beginning your social enterprise, growing your social enterprise, so the different stages of development, and so we are getting those, we've had those webinars, but some of those that didn't get recorded successfully, we will be getting those recorded and have those up on the site. So that'll be one form of online training for sure. And then also if you do just keep track of the events, when organizations like Weave and other organizations across Ontario and across the country are having webinars that are training style webinars, we do make sure that those are on there. But there may well be some other specific training ideas that we can include as well, so we'll definitely look into that. Great.
And I'm actually not going to say the fourth question. I think we the way question 2 unfolded, we kind of mentioned that, although if there were specific features or sort of not smaller, but kind of more technical or specific things that you wanted to mention that could be improved, please do feel free to type those in the chat box. But really our goal with this was to, again, check in about how we can continue developing the site in a way that really hits what you need. Part of the reason that you see Pillar Nonprofit Network, Ontario Nonprofit Network, and the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, all those names up there and all of the networks themselves is, the goal of putting together SE Ontario really was to join up all the smaller parts of resources that we have to work on social enterprise and really bring it together in a way that could help showcase the different stories and share sort of the whole picture of what's happening around social enterprise in the province. So we hope this is a way to, leverage and get showcase for the work that you're doing, and that it's an asset for you.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Heather, that this type of forum is just the beginning, and we've got 24 participants on the line right now, and it's all about organic growth when it comes to a website like this. So strongly recommend each of you to tweet the website link out, the fact that you were on this webinar and there's more to come. Start the buzz growing, because I suspect many of you were not even aware of some of the the great features that were just recently built, and now the question of the month. There's a lot out there to get out. So already you are ambassadors of this website by design. So absolutely get the word out on your own social circles and in your own resource centers, so that people are aware of the site through Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use.
And certainly we hope that by using some of those channels, you'll be able to profile your own work as well. So we hope very much, as Lori said, that you'll become ambassadors or users of the site and find it useful for you. So with that, I'll flip it back to you. Thank you for answering all of our questions. I know some people were able to ask their own questions as we went through the different resource sections, but I'll just take a few minutes here to open up the chat if anyone has further questions about kind of the purpose of the site or where it's headed or anything specific that you felt you missed earlier about the different features or sort of how the project unfolded, where you'd like to see it headed. Any questions at all that you want to ask about SE Ontario? Now's your chance. So.
And we're seeing, it does say that multiple attendees are typing, but oops, here we go. From Meg.
Thanks, Meg. I'm glad it's useful.
It's just a positive comment, and positive comments are always welcome, as along with the constructive ideas that we've had as well. And it was good to hear the suggestion of a blog, because we haven't really been done blog postings as such, so that is something that we've sort of considered and been thinking about, and it sounds as if there is some definite interest in the idea of blog posting. So we'll look at how we could incorporate something like that, within the resources that we have. I think perhaps having the idea of guest blogs, bloggers, and so on is one way that we can do that to capitalize on all the great talent that there is. And I do see that Matthew has put in the link for the SurveyMonkey there, and you will receive it by email. So I think just as we're wrapping up, I do want to thank, just first of all reiterate a thank you to our funders, the Government of Ontario, as well as the Ontario Trillium Foundation. The support of the development of the site is really important. It couldn't have happened without them, so we really appreciate that. I'd certainly also really like to thank my co-presenters and our site partners, Heather with Ontario Nonprofit Network and Laurie with Pillar Nonprofit Network for London, as well as my colleague Matthew, who's been keeping the technology going for us today. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Drew, who's been doing a lot of the communication. Most of the tweets that you've been seeing have been coming from Drew. He's been working with communications on the site as well, so we really appreciate that support. But most of all, I really want to thank you for your involvement today and for being some active participants. And do urge you to keep that up. We talk about this as being a community-driven site, and we certainly have been building a number of mechanisms in to try and engage you and the enterprise sector in as many ways as possible, so that it can truly be your site. And we certainly, that's the goal, and that's what we're working towards. So do submit your SE stories, your favorite and most valuable resources, your news items, connect with the question of the month, either by providing questions or suggesting answers to the questions as they're posted there. And for sure, as you receive the SurveyMonkey to put yourself on the map, then for sure, do that. We want to get as many of you on the map as possible. And check out the events calendar, as particularly throughout the summer, late summer, as you'll be seeing the schedule for the fall webinars on the different models of social enterprise, as well as the Francophone version of this site that we're really looking forward to launching in the fall as well. So, and finally, as Matthew mentioned in the chat there, and you will be receiving the email, do take just a moment. This is literally a 1-minute survey that will be emailed to you, and so we'll appreciate your feedback on that. And as I mentioned, the recording for this webinar will be posted on the site, and you'll be notified about that. So if you want to share this information with others, you can do that in the future too. And so with that, I think even though we have 1 minute to spare, but I think at this point it looks as if it's mainly comments rather than questions. So I think we can close